Harper Zimmerman had been working for Winston Drake for exactly 364 days when she finally admitted to herself that she was hopelessly in love with her boss. The realization hit her like a freight train as she stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching him argue passionately with a supplier over the phone about sustainable materials for their furniture company's new line. His dark hair was disheveled from running his hands through it, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He looked tired and frustrated and absolutely magnificent, and Harper felt her heart crack open with the weight of everything she had been trying to ignore for months. Drake Interiors had been her dream job when she had landed the position as executive assistant to the CEO. At 26, she had felt incredibly lucky to work directly under someone as successful as Winston Drake, who at 32 had built his father's struggling furniture business into a multi-million-dollar empire, specializing in eco-friendly, handcrafted pieces for luxury homes and hotels. The company employed over 500 people across 3 manufacturing facilities, and Winston was known in the industry for his innovative designs and unwavering commitment to environmental responsibility. Harper had expected a demanding boss, long hours, and high pressure. What she had not expected was how kind Winston would be, how he remembered that she took her coffee with oat milk and a touch of honey, how he always asked about her younger sister's college applications, how he stayed late with her when deadlines loomed, ordering dinner and insisting she eat before continuing work, how his rare smiles transformed his serious face into something breathtaking. She had not expected to fall in love with him at all. "I understand your position, Marcus, but I won't compromise on this," Winston said firmly into the phone. "Our clients choose us because we don't cut corners. If you cannot source the reclaimed wood we need without involving suppliers who clear-cut forests, then I will find someone who can." Harper organized the fabric samples on his desk, trying to look busy while her mind raced. Tomorrow would mark 1 full year of working together. She had planned to celebrate privately, maybe treat herself to a nice dinner, acknowledge this milestone in her career. Instead, she would spend the evening trying not to think about how impossible this situation was. Winston was her boss. He was a millionaire CEO. He was completely out of her league, and most importantly, he had never shown any indication that he saw her as anything other than an excellent assistant. Winston ended the call and sighed heavily, dropping into his leather chair. "Sorry about that. I know we need to finalize these samples today." "It's fine," Harper said, keeping her voice professional. "You were standing up for what you believe in. That's important." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his gray eyes. "You always say that. You always understand," her heart stuttered. "It's my job to understand." "Is it?" He leaned back, still watching her. "I think you go far beyond what your job requires, Harper." "You have from the beginning." She focused on the fabric swatches, touching the soft texture of a moss-green velvet. "You're an easy person to work for." "That's not what my last 3 assistants said. They all quit within 4 months. Harper glanced up, surprised. "I didn't know that." "I was apparently too demanding, too focused, too unwilling to separate work from personal time." Winston stood, moving to the window overlooking the city. "Then you started, and suddenly everything was easier. You anticipated what I needed before I asked. You cared about the work as much as I did. You made me laugh on days when I wanted to throw my computer out this window." She did not know what to say. The air in the office felt charged, different somehow. "Winston, I'm going to need you to stay late tomorrow night," he interrupted, his tone shifting back to business. "I have something important to discuss with you." Harper's stomach dropped. Was he letting her go? Had he somehow sensed her feelings and decided this was inappropriate? Of course, whatever you need. He turned back to her, and she could have sworn there was nervousness in his expression, but it was gone so quickly she thought she had imagined it. Good. Now, let's look at these samples. I'm leaning toward the navy for the hotel suites, but I want your opinion. They spent the next 2 hours working side by side, debating colors and textures and design aesthetics. Harper loved these moments, when Winston treated her like a true partner rather than just an assistant. He valued her eye for design, her understanding of what would appeal to their high-end clientele. She had an art history degree that she had thought was useless until this job, where suddenly her knowledge of color theory and aesthetic movements mattered. By the time they finished, the sun was setting, painting the office in shades of amber and rose. Winston walked her to the elevator as he always did, a gentlemanly habit that never failed to make her feel cherished, even though she knew it meant nothing. "See you tomorrow, Harper," he said as the elevator doors opened. "See you tomorrow," she echoed, stepping inside. As the doors closed, she saw him standing there watching her, his expression thoughtful and intense, and she wondered what he was thinking. The next morning, Harper woke with a sense of foreboding that she could not shake. She dressed carefully in a charcoal sheath dress and her favorite heels, as if armor could protect her from whatever was coming. Maybe Winston had decided to promote her to a different department. Maybe he was restructuring, and her position was being eliminated. Maybe he had finally decided to hire someone with an actual business degree instead of someone who had stumbled into this role through a connection at a networking event. She arrived at the office before 8, as always. Winston was already there, also as always. He was standing by her desk with 2 cups of coffee, one of which he handed to her as she approached. "Good morning," he said. "Happy anniversary." Harper nearly dropped the cup. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered. It's been a year since my life became significantly better." He smiled, that rare, full smile that made her knees weak. "I got you something." He handed her a small, wrapped box. Harper's hands trembled slightly as she opened it, revealing a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny desk with miniature designs spread across it, so detailed she could make out individual pieces of furniture. "Winston, this is beautiful. You shouldn't have. I had it custom made." "That's your desk, or an approximation of it. I wanted you to have something that represents this year, what you've meant to this company." He paused. "What you've meant to me." Harper looked up at him, unable to speak. There was something in his eyes, something that made her heart race with dangerous hope. "Wear it today?" he asked softly. She nodded, unable to trust her voice, and fastened it around her wrist. The metal was cool against her skin, a constant reminder of his thoughtfulness throughout the day. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Harper could barely focus on her tasks, her mind spinning with possibilities about what Winston wanted to discuss that evening. She caught him watching her several times, and each time he looked away quickly, as if he had been caught doing something he should not. At 5 o'clock, the office began to empty. By 6, the entire floor was deserted except for the 2 of them. Harper's nerves were stretched thin as she knocked on Winston's open door. "You wanted to see me." He stood from his desk, and she noticed he looked nervous. Winston Drake, who negotiated million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, who had given presentations to boards of directors since he was 24, looked genuinely nervous. "Come in." "Close the door." Harper did, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain he could hear it. He gestured to the leather sofa in the corner of his office rather than the chairs across from his desk, and she sat, watching as he settled beside her close, but not quite touching. "I've been thinking about how to say this for months," Winston began, His gray eyes locked on hers. I've started this conversation in my head probably 100 times, but now that the moment is here, I'm finding it harder than I expected. You're making me nervous, Harper admitted. Good. I've been nervous around you for almost a year. He took a breath. Harper, I need to tell you something, but I need you to let me finish before you respond, because if I don't get this all out, I might lose my courage. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. From your first week here, I knew you were different. You were smart and capable, and you cared about the work in a way that reminded me why I started this company in the first place. You made coming to the office something I looked forward to every single day. And somewhere along the way, probably far sooner than I want to admit, I started having feelings for you that went way beyond professional appreciation. Harper's breath caught, but Winston continued, his words coming faster now. I fought it. I'm your boss, and I never wanted to put you in an uncomfortable position or make you feel like your job was dependent on anything other than your excellent work. I set boundaries for myself. I told myself that maintaining a professional relationship was the right thing to do, that anything else would be inappropriate. But Harper, this past year has been the hardest of my life in ways that have nothing to do with business. He reached out, his fingers barely brushing her hand. Working with you every day, being near you, learning everything about you that makes you extraordinary, and not being able to tell you how I feel, it's been torture. The best kind of torture, but torture nonetheless. Winston, she started, but he shook his head. Please let me finish. I know this is complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea, but I've waited a year, Harper. A full year of pretending I don't notice the way the light catches your hair, or how your eyes light up when you talk about art, or how your laugh is the best sound I've ever heard. A year of wanting to reach for you and holding myself back. A year of going home alone to an empty apartment and wishing you were there, and I can't do it anymore. He took both her hands in his, and his touch sent electricity through her entire body. I'm in love with you. I have been for months, maybe from the beginning. And I understand if you don't feel the same way, or if this is too complicated, or if you'd prefer to maintain our professional relationship. I will respect whatever you decide, but I needed you to know. I couldn't let another day pass without telling you the truth. Harper stared at him, her mind reeling. Winston Drake loved her. The man she had been pining for, the man she thought was completely unreachable, loved her back. You said I could respond now, she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Please do, before I die of anxiety. A laugh bubbled up from her chest, part joy and part disbelief. I have been in love with you for months, Winston. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was being completely unprofessional and inappropriate. I tried so hard to hide it, to act normal, to be just your assistant and nothing more. But every single day it got harder. The expression on his face transformed from nervous hope to pure relief and joy. You love me. Yes, you brilliant idiot, I love you. The words felt like freedom. Winston reached up, cupping her face in his hands with a tenderness that made her eyes sting with tears. Can I kiss you? I've wanted to kiss you for so long. Yes, Harper breathed. Please, yes. When his lips met hers, it was like coming home. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if they both could not quite believe this was real. Then Winston's arms came around her, pulling her closer, and Harper melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss deepened, a year of longing and restraint dissolving in the heat between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Winston rested his forehead against hers. I never expected the wait would be worth everything, but it was. It's worth every moment of holding back. Harper kissed him again, softer this time. So what happens now? Now. Winston pulled back slightly to look at her, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Now we figure this out together. I know there are logistics to consider, the company policy, what people will say, how we navigate this professionally. But Harper, I don't want to hide this. I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to be with you publicly and proudly. Won't that cause problems? I mean, you're the CEO and I'm your assistant. Then we change your role. I've been thinking about this for weeks. You're wasted as an assistant anyway. You have an incredible eye for design, and you understand our brand better than half the people in the creative department. I want to offer you a position as a junior design consultant. You'll report to Linda in the design department instead of to me. You'll get a significant raise in your own office, and there won't be any conflict of interest when I take you to dinner tomorrow night. Harper felt overwhelmed by how much thought he had put into this. You've really planned this out. I've had a year to plan. I've thought of every possible angle, every potential problem. I want this to work, Harper. I want us to work. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen while protecting both your career and your reputation. She touched his face, marveling that she was allowed to do this now. I don't want to leave you. Working with you is one of my favorite parts of the day. We'll still work together. We'll just have different dynamics. You'll come to design meetings, contribute your ideas, help shape the direction of new collections. You'll be doing what you're actually passionate about instead of managing my calendar. It was perfect, almost too perfect. Harper felt a flicker of doubt. Are you sure this is what you want? Not just the relationship, but the complication of it all. People will talk. Some might think you're showing favoritism. Winston's expression grew serious. Let them talk. Harper, I've spent my entire adult life building this company, proving myself, living up to expectations. I've sacrificed relationships, friendships, personal time, everything for Drake Interiors. And it's been worth it, but not in the way I thought. It was worth it because it brought me you. I'm not going to sacrifice the best thing that's ever happened to me because some people might gossip. The best thing, Harper repeated, her heart swelling, the very best thing. He kissed her again, and she felt his smile against her lips. I mean it. This year, working with you, getting to know you, it's been the happiest I've ever been, even with the torture of not being able to act on my feelings. Now that I can actually be with you, I feel like the luckiest man alive. They stayed in his office talking for hours, sitting close together on the sofa, finally able to touch and kiss and be honest about everything they had been feeling. Winston told her about the first moment he knew he loved her 3 months in, when she had stayed until midnight helping him prepare for a crucial investor presentation, and had made him laugh so hard he forgot to be nervous. Harper told him about realizing she was in love with him just yesterday, though she admitted she had been falling for much longer without letting herself acknowledge it. I was so scared today, Harper confessed, as Winston's fingers traced patterns on her arm. I thought you were going to fire me. Fire you? Harper, you're the best thing that's happened to this company. Our efficiency has increased by 30% since you started. My stress levels have decreased significantly. The entire executive team has commented on the improvement. I thought maybe you figured out how I felt and it made you uncomfortable. Winston laughed softly. Meanwhile, I was terrified you had figured out how I felt and were too professional to say anything. We're quite a pair. A year, Harper said wonderingly. We wasted a whole year. Not wasted. I don't think we were ready before. I needed to be sure these feelings were real and lasting, not just attraction or the intimacy of working closely together. I needed to know that what I felt for you was worth the risk of changing our entire dynamic. And I needed to have a plan for how to make this work without hurting your career. She shifted to look at him directly. And you're sure now? I've never been more sure of anything. His gray eyes held absolute certainty. I love you, Harper Zimmerman. I'm in love with you. And I want to build a life with you if you'll have me. It was perhaps too soon for such declarations, but Harper felt the truth of them in her bones. This was not some passing infatuation. This was the real thing, the kind of love that songs and poems tried to capture. I want that too, all of it. Winston pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling more content than she had in years. Outside the windows, the city lights sparkled in the darkness. Inside this office, everything had changed, and yet somehow felt exactly right. "We should probably go home," Winston said eventually, though he made no move to stand. "It's nearly 10. "Probably," Harper agreed, equally unmotivated to leave. "Or we could stay here forever." "Tempting, but I have plans for our first official date tomorrow night, and I need you well rested for it." Harper sat up, curious. "Plans? You'll see. Wear something nice." His eyes sparkled with mischief. "I'm going to romance you properly, Harper. A year of wanting means I have a year's worth of dates planned in my head. That's a lot of pressure for a first date. I can handle it. After all, I've been preparing for this for 12 months. He drove her home, and the car ride felt different than all the times he had offered her a ride before. His hand found hers on the console, their fingers intertwining naturally. When they reached her apartment building, Winston walked her to the door like a proper gentleman. "Tomorrow," he said, pulling her close for one more kiss. 6 o'clock. I'll pick you up right here. I'll be ready." Harper smiled up at him. "Winston, thank you for being brave enough to tell me. I don't think I ever would have said anything." "That's why I'm the CEO," he teased. "Making the difficult decisions is part of the job description." She watched him drive away, then floated up to her apartment in a daze. Her roommate, Sophie, took one look at her face and squealed. "Oh my God, something happened. Tell me everything." Harper collapsed on the couch, unable to stop grinning. "Winston told me he loves me. Your boss, Winston. CEO Winston. The guy you've been pining over for months while insisting nothing could ever happen." Sophie's eyes were wide. "That Winston. And Sophie, he's been feeling the same way. For months. We've both been hiding it this entire time." "That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. So what happens now? Are you dating? Are you still working for him?" Harper explained Winston's plan about changing her position, and Sophie nodded approvingly. "Smart. He really thought this through. He said he's been planning for weeks. Because he's crazy about you." Sophie grabbed her hands. "Harper, this is huge. You're dating a millionaire CEO who is head over heels for you. This is fairy tale material." Harper had not really thought about the money aspect. Winston was wealthy, extremely wealthy, but he never acted like it at work. He was hands-on with every aspect of the business, often staying later than anyone else, personally visiting manufacturing facilities, meeting with every client. The money seemed almost incidental to him, a byproduct of doing what he loved. "It's not about the money," Harper said. "It's about him. Winston is kind and brilliant and passionate about his work. He treats everyone with respect. He remembers details about people's lives. He's everything I've ever wanted." Sophie's expression softened. "You really love him." "I really do." That night, Harper lay in bed touching the bracelet on her wrist, still unable to believe this was real. Her phone buzzed with a text from Winston. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about kissing you. Is it tomorrow yet?" She laughed and typed back. "Almost. Just a few more hours. Too long. I've waited a year for this. My patience is officially exhausted. Good things come to those who wait. Great things, apparently. You're worth every second, Harper." Sweet dreams. Harper fell asleep smiling, her heart full of possibilities. The next day dragged interminably. Harper went to the office to clear out her desk and start the transition to her new role. The HR director, a kind woman named Patricia, processed her paperwork with a knowing smile. "Winston personally requested this transfer," Patricia said. "He spoke very highly of your design instincts and said you'd be an asset to the creative team. This comes with a 30% salary increase and stock options." Harper's eyes widened. "Stock options? You're becoming a consultant, not just an assistant. Winston wants you invested in the company's future." Patricia leaned forward conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I've worked here for 8 years, and I've never seen Winston this animated about a personnel change. He clearly values you." If only Patricia knew the half of it. Harper spent the afternoon with Linda, the head of design, discussing her new responsibilities. Linda was enthusiastic about having her on the team. "I've been telling Winston for months that you were wasted as an assistant," Linda said, showing Harper to a small but lovely office with a view of the city. "Every time you sat in on meetings, your insights were spot on. I'm thrilled to have you officially." By 5:30, Harper was home and tearing through her closet, trying to find the perfect outfit. She settled on a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves elegantly, paired with simple heels and delicate jewelry. She left her dark hair down in loose waves, the way Winston had once mentioned he liked it, a comment he had made months ago that she had filed away like a treasure. At exactly 6 o'clock, her doorbell rang. Winston stood there in a dark suit with no tie, looking unfairly handsome. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You're stunning," he said, his voice rough. "Absolutely stunning." "You clean up pretty well yourself," Harper replied, taking his offered arm. He led her to his car, a sleek but understated sedan, and opened her door. As he drove, Harper noticed they were heading away from the trendy downtown area, where most of the nice restaurants were located. "Where are we going? You'll see. Trust me. Always." They drove for about 20 minutes, finally pulling up to a building Harper recognized as the city's art museum. It was closed for the evening, but Winston led her to a side entrance where a security guard greeted him by name and unlocked the door. "Winston, what is this? You mentioned once that you wished you had more time to visit museums, but they're always crowded on weekends and you work during the week. So I called in a favor." He guided her inside, and Harper gasped. The museum was empty, lit beautifully, and all theirs. Soft music played from somewhere, and in the main gallery, a table was set for 2 with candles and flowers. "You rented out the entire museum. I wanted our first date to be special, and I wanted to give you something that mattered to you. I know how much you love art." Winston pulled out her chair. "I have a chef preparing dinner in their event kitchen. We have 3 hours before they need us to leave. I thought we could eat, then walk through the galleries. You can show me your favorite pieces and tell me all the things I should know about art but don't." Harper felt tears prick her eyes. "This is the most romantic thing anyone has ever done for me." "Good. That's exactly what I was going for." Winston sat across from her, candlelight dancing in his eyes. "I've been planning this for 2 months, hoping I'd get the chance to actually go through with it." Dinner was exquisite, multiple courses of beautifully prepared food, but Harper barely tasted it. She was too focused on Winston, on the way he looked at her like she was something precious, on the easy conversation that flowed between them without the barriers they had maintained before. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Winston said over dessert. "Something you've never mentioned at work." Harper thought about it. "I wanted to be a painter when I was younger. I was pretty good, actually, but my parents convinced me it wasn't practical, so I studied art history instead, thinking I'd work in a museum. But those jobs are scarce and don't pay well, so I ended up in administrative work. I haven't painted in years." "You miss it?" "Sometimes. It was how I processed the world, you know, how I made sense of things." Winston reached across the table, taking her hand. You should start again. I have a spare room in my apartment with incredible natural light. You could use it as a studio. Winston, we've been officially dating for approximately 3 hours. You can't offer me a room in your apartment. Why not? I love you, you love me, I have space you need. It seems logical. He grinned at her expression. Too much, maybe a little, but I appreciate the thought. After dinner, they wandered through the galleries hand in hand. Harper talked about the paintings, the history and context and techniques, and Winston listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering his own observations. In the contemporary wing, he pulled her close in front of a massive abstract piece and kissed her, and Harper thought she might actually be living in a dream. I could get used to this, she murmured against his lips. Good, because I plan to keep doing things like this. I have a lot of lost time to make up for. When their time was up, Winston drove her home but walked her up to her apartment this time. Sophie had made herself scarce, leaving a note that she was staying at her boyfriend's place. She's not subtle, Harper said, laughing. Smart woman. Winston pulled Harper close, his hands settling on her waist. I should go. Let you get some rest. Or you could stay for a while. We could watch a movie or just talk. They ended up on the couch, Harper curled against Winston's side, not really watching the movie that played on the television. Instead, they talked about everything and nothing: childhood memories, dreams for the future, silly preferences and deep fears. Winston told her about the pressure of taking over his father's company at 25, how terrified he had been of failing, of letting down the employees who depended on him. My father built Drake Interiors from nothing, Winston said, his fingers absently stroking Harper's hair. He died of a heart attack at 60, and suddenly I was in charge. I had an MBA but almost no real-world experience. The first year was brutal. I made mistakes, nearly lost some major accounts, had to lay off people because I miscalculated our capacity. But I learned. I worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life, and slowly things turned around. Your father would be proud of what you've built. I hope so. Sometimes I wish he could see it, see how we've grown while staying true to his original vision of quality craftsmanship. He believed furniture should last generations, should be beautiful and functional and responsibly made. That's still our core principle. Harper shifted to look up at him. That's why you fought so hard with that supplier yesterday. It wasn't just about business. It's never just about business. Every decision reflects who we are as a company, what we stand for. I can't compromise on that, even when it would be easier or more profitable. That's one of the things I love about you, Harper said softly. Your integrity. The way you care about doing things right, not just doing things successfully. Winston kissed her forehead. You see me clearly, don't you? The real me, not just the CEO or the boss. I see you, Harper confirmed, and I love what I see. He left around midnight, but not before kissing her thoroughly at the door and making plans for the weekend. Harper went to bed giddy and exhausted, still barely believing her life had transformed so dramatically in 48 hours. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of adjustment. Harper started her new position in the design department and discovered she loved it even more than she had anticipated. Linda gave her real responsibilities, asked for her input on major projects, and valued her artistic perspective. The other designers welcomed her warmly, and Harper felt like she was finally using her education and natural talents. Dating Winston was everything she had dreamed and more. He was attentive and romantic, planning thoughtful dates and surprising her with little gestures that showed how well he knew her. But he was also real with her in a way she suspected he was with few people. He told her when he was stressed or worried, asked for her advice on difficult decisions, Let her see his vulnerabilities and insecurities. They kept the relationship quiet at work for the first month, wanting to establish Harper in her new role before adding the complication of their romance. But Winston was right. Working in different departments made it easier. They still saw each other often in meetings, but there was no appearance of impropriety, no whispers about favoritism. Still, Harper knew they could not keep it secret forever, and she did not want to. Being with Winston felt too good, too right to hide. "We should tell people," she said one evening as they cooked dinner together in Winston's spacious apartment kitchen. He had been teaching her to make his grandmother's lasagna recipe, and they were laughing over her terrible layering technique. "You sure?" Winston asked, coming up behind her to help straighten the pasta sheets. "I don't want you to feel pressured to go public before you're ready." "I'm ready. I don't want to sneak around. I want to be able to have lunch with you in the building cafeteria without worrying about appearances. I want people to know that I'm with you." Winston turned her around, his sauce-covered hands settling on her waist despite her protests about her dress. "I want that too. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. I'm just trying to protect you from gossip and speculation. People are going to talk regardless, but I can handle it. I'm good at my job. I earned my position. What we do outside of work is nobody's business but ours." "You're right." He kissed her, then made a face. "I got sauce on your nose." "You're a disaster," Harper laughed, wiping at her face with a towel. "You're disaster, though." They announced their relationship the following week in the most low-key way possible. Winston simply mentioned during an executive meeting that he and Harper were dating, stated that there was no conflict of interest given her new position, and moved on to the next agenda item. Harper's team in the design department took the news with varying degrees of surprise and enthusiasm. Linda just laughed and said she had suspected something was developing. There was some gossip, as expected. A few people made snide comments about Harper sleeping her way to a promotion, but those whispers died quickly when her work spoke for itself. She contributed significantly to a major hotel contract, her design ideas winning over a client who had been considering a competitor. Winston made sure to praise her work publicly without overdoing it, treating her exactly as he treated other valuable employees. What surprised Harper was how normal it all felt. She had worried that mixing work and romance would be complicated and stressful, but instead, it just felt like her life had finally aligned properly. She loved her job. She loved her boyfriend, and the two things complemented each other beautifully. 3 months into their relationship, Winston invited her to a charity gala that Drake Interiors was sponsoring. It would be their first major public appearance together, and Harper was nervous. "Everyone there will be wealthy and important," she fretted, trying on her 5th dress while Winston sat on her bed watching with amusement. "I don't fit into that world. You fit perfectly into my world, which is the only world that matters." He stood and came to her, zipping up the navy gown she had just put on. "This one, you look incredible. Are you sure? It's not too plain, Harper." Winston turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "You're going to meet a lot of people tonight who have money and status and think that makes them important. But you have something they don't. You have genuine talent, real intelligence, and a kind heart. You're worth 10 of anyone who will be there. And you're with me, which means you belong anywhere I belong." His confidence steadied her. The gala was held at a historic hotel that Drake Interiors had furnished, and Harper could not help the thrill of pride she felt seeing their work displayed so beautifully. Winston kept her close to his side all evening, introducing her to clients and business partners, and making it clear through his attention and affection how much she meant to him. "So you're the young woman who's captured Winston's heart," said an elegant older woman who turned out to be the CEO of a major hotel chain. "He's been talking about you nonstop. I've heard about your design work on the Riverside project." Harper discussed the project with her, and before the conversation ended, the woman had requested that Harper be part of the team pitching for her company's upcoming boutique hotel renovations. "See," Winston murmured in her ear as they danced later. "You're brilliant, and people recognize that." "I'm still getting used to all of this," Harper admitted. 6 months ago, I was answering your phones. Now I'm pitching to hotel executives and dancing with you at a gala. It's surreal. Get used to it. This is your life now." He pulled her closer, and Harper rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid steadiness of him. "Our life. I like the sound of that." As fall turned to winter, their relationship deepened into something Harper had never experienced before. Winston was not just her boyfriend, he was her partner, her best friend, her safe place. They spent almost every evening together, alternating between her apartment and his. He encouraged her to start painting again, and she had slowly begun to fill canvases with abstract pieces inspired by color theory and emotion. Winston seemed fascinated by her art, asking her to explain her process, watching her work with an intensity that made her self-conscious until she got used to it. "You're brilliant," he said one evening, studying a piece she had just finished, swirls of deep blue and gold that somehow captured the feeling of contentment. "Harper, these are really good. You could show them. They're just for fun. They're more than that. They're beautiful and accomplished and worthy of being seen." His faith in her meant everything. Winston had a way of making her believe in herself, of seeing potential she had not known she possessed. Under his encouragement, she took on bigger projects at work, pitched bolder ideas, and watched as they succeeded more often than they failed. For Christmas, Winston took her to meet his mother, who lived in a beautiful home in Connecticut. Harper had been terrified, but Winston Drake turned out to be as warm and kind as her son, if considerably more forthright. "So you're the girl who finally made my son smile again," Winston said, pulling Harper into a hug before she had even made it fully through the door. "I've been hoping someone would come along and remind him there's more to life than work." "Mom, please don't scare her off," Winston said, but he was grinning. "Oh, she's not going anywhere. I can see it in the way she looks at you." Winston linked her arm through Harper's. "Come, let me show you all of Winston's embarrassing childhood photos." The weekend was wonderful. Winston treated Harper like she was already family, asking about her work and her life and her family. Harper's own parents had been supportive but slightly bewildered by her relationship with Winston. They were middle-class people from a small town, and found the entire situation somewhat overwhelming. But Winston made her feel comfortable, like she belonged. On Christmas morning, Winston gave Harper a key to his apartment. "I know we haven't talked about moving in together officially, but you're there almost every night anyway. I want you to feel like it's your home too." Harper gave him a painting she had been working on for weeks, a landscape of the view from his office window, the city at sunset, painted in rich, warm tones. Winston looked at it for a long moment, then set it carefully aside and pulled her into his arms. "I love you," he said fiercely. "I love you so much, Harper." "I love you too. Merry Christmas." "Best Christmas of my life," he murmured into her hair. Winter melted into spring, and with it came new projects and new challenges. Drake Interiors was expanding into the West Coast market, which meant Winston was traveling more frequently. Harper hated the separations, even though they were usually only a few days. "Come with me," Winston said one evening in March as he packed for a trip to Los Angeles. "Take a few days off. We could explore the city together when I'm not in meetings. I can't just take time off randomly. We have the Riverside project deadline coming up. Linda would understand. And you've been working non-stop for weeks. You could use a break. Harper hesitated, then made a decision. Okay. Yes. Let's do it. Los Angeles was beautiful and chaotic, and Harper loved experiencing it with Winston. She sat in on some of his meetings, impressed as always by his business acumen and his ability to negotiate firmly while remaining personable. In between work obligations, they explored the city, ate at amazing restaurants, and spent one perfect afternoon on the beach. I could get used to this, Harper said, lying on a blanket with Winston beside her, the Pacific Ocean stretching out before them. The traveling together part, I mean. Good, because I want you with me as much as possible. These trips are lonely without you. She turned her head to look at him. You know we're really serious now, right? We're past the point of casual dating. This is the real thing. This has been the real thing since the beginning, Winston said, propping himself up on his elbow to look down at her. At least for me. I knew what I was getting into when I told you how I felt. I knew I was all in. I'm all in too, Harper said softly. Completely, totally all in. He kissed her, tasting like salt and sunshine, and Harper thought she could happily spend the rest of her life doing exactly this. When they returned home, Harper made a decision. She gave notice on her apartment and officially moved into Winston's place. Sophie threw her a going-away party, though they promised to stay close friends. You're living with a millionaire, Sophie said, hugging her tight. My best friend is basically a princess now. I'm not a princess. I'm just a woman in love with a wonderful man who happens to be successful. That's exactly what a princess would say. Living with Winston was an adjustment, but a happy one. They learned each other's routines and quirks, had their first real fights about things like whose turn it was to do dishes and how to load the dishwasher correctly, and came out the other side more solid than before. Harper claimed the spare room as her studio, and Winston framed and hung her paintings throughout the apartment, proud of her work. 1 year after Winston had first told her he loved her, 2 years after she had started working for Drake Interiors, Harper was putting the finishing touches on their biggest project yet. The Riverside Hotel renovation was complete, and the grand reopening was scheduled for the following week. She and the design team had worked tirelessly, and the result was stunning, elegant spaces that honored the building's historic character while feeling fresh and modern. Winston found her in the hotel's lobby the evening before the opening, standing alone and taking it all in. You did this, he said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. This is your vision brought to life. It was a team effort. It was your leadership and your eye for detail. Linda told me you were the driving force behind the entire project. He kissed her temple. I'm so proud of you, Harper. You've become an essential part of this company, and more importantly, you're doing work you love. She leaned back against him, feeling overwhelmingly grateful. 2 years ago, I was just hoping to make a good impression as your new assistant. I never imagined my life could become this. 2 years ago, I was a workaholic who had resigned himself to being married to his company. Then you walked in and changed everything. Winston turned her in his arms. Speaking of which, I have something for you. Another bracelet. Harper teased, touching the one she still wore every day. Not exactly. Winston reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, and Harper's heart stopped. Harper Zimmerman, these past 2 years have been the best of my life. You've made me happier than I thought possible. You've challenged me, supported me, inspired me to be better. You see me the real me, and you love me anyway. I can't imagine my life without you in it, and I don't want to try. He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and unique. This isn't a diamond because you're not ordinary or traditional. You're extraordinary. Your art and intelligence and beauty and kindness all wrapped up in one remarkable person, and I love you more than I have words to express." Harper's eyes filled with tears as Winston dropped to one knee in the middle of the hotel lobby they had created together. "Harper, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my forever?" "Yes," Harper breathed. "Yes, of course, yes." Winston stood and slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her deeply while she laughed and cried at the same time. The sapphire caught the light, throwing blue sparkles across the marble floor. "I love you," Harper said against his lips. "I love you so much. I love you too. I've loved you since the moment you made me laugh during that first stressful week. I loved you through the year of waiting, through every moment of holding back, and I'll love you for the rest of our lives." They stood there holding each other, the empty hotel waiting for tomorrow's crowds, and Harper thought about how far they had come. A year of waiting, of wanting, of keeping feelings hidden because the timing wasn't right. And then the perfect moment when Winston had been brave enough to speak up, to risk everything for a chance at them. He had been right that night in his office. The wait had been worth everything. The engagement party was a lavish affair that Alina insisted on throwing, inviting what seemed like half the city. Harper's parents came, looking slightly overwhelmed but proud. Sophie was there, along with Linda, and the design team and dozens of business associates and friends. Winston kept Harper close all evening, his hand never leaving hers, as if he needed the physical reminder that she was real and his. "I still can't believe this is my life," Harper whispered to him during a quiet moment on the terrace, city lights sparkling below them. "Believe it. This is just the beginning." Winston pulled her into his arms, swaying slightly to the music drifting from inside. "I have so many plans for us, Harper. Travel, adventures, building a family when we're ready. I want everything with you. Everything sounds perfect." They set a date for the following spring, wanting a full year to plan without stress. Harper threw herself into wedding preparations with the same attention to detail she brought to her design work. She wanted something elegant but personal, a celebration that felt authentic to who they were as a couple. Work continued to flourish. The Riverside project won several industry awards, and Harper's reputation as a talented designer grew. She was promoted to senior consultant and began leading her own projects, building a portfolio that made her proud. Winston stepped back slightly from day-to-day operations, delegating more to his executive team so he could focus on strategic direction and spend more time with Harper. "I spent too many years sacrificing everything for work," he told her one evening. "I don't want to sacrifice time with you. You're more important than any business deal or project deadline." 8 months before their wedding, Harper discovered she was pregnant. They had not been trying, but they had not been preventing it either, taking a relaxed approach to family planning. Still, seeing the positive test was overwhelming. "Winston," she called from the bathroom, her voice shaking slightly. He appeared in the doorway immediately, concern on his face. "What's wrong?" She held up the test without speaking, and Winston's expression transformed from worry to shock to pure joy in the space of seconds. "You're pregnant. We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," Harper confirmed, and then she was in his arms, both of them laughing and crying at once. "This is earlier than we planned," Winston said, pulling back to cup her face in his hands. "But Harper, I'm so happy. Are you happy?" "I'm terrified and thrilled and completely overwhelmed," Harper admitted. "But yes, I'm happy. We're getting married in a few months anyway. We'll just have a baby on the way." They told their families over Christmas, and Alina cried happy tears while Harper's mother immediately began knitting baby blankets. Sophie screamed so loudly on the phone that Harper had to hold it away from her ear. The wedding was beautiful, a spring ceremony in the botanical gardens, surrounded by flowers and the people they loved most. Harper wore a flowing gown that accommodated her small baby bump, and Winston cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising partnership and adventure and unwavering support through whatever life brought. "I promise to always be brave enough to tell you the truth," Winston said, his voice thick with emotion, "even when it's hard or scary. You're my greatest adventure, Harper, and I will spend every day making sure you know how loved you are." "I promise to always see you clearly," Harper responded, tears streaming down her face, "to remind you of who you are when you forget. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and I will spend my life returning that gift. I love you, Winston Drake, with everything I am." When the officiant pronounced them married, Winston kissed her with such tenderness that Harper felt her heart might burst from happiness. This was her life now. This incredible, impossible, perfect life. Their daughter was born in late August, a healthy, beautiful baby they named Rose Eleanor Drake. Harper had never known it was possible to love someone so instantly and completely. Winston was a natural father, patient and gentle, waking for midnight feedings and changing diapers without complaint. "I used to think building the company was my greatest accomplishment," he said one night, holding Rose while she slept on his chest. "But this you and her, this is everything. This is what actually matters." Harper curled against his side, her little family complete, and thought about the journey that had brought them here. A year of waiting, of hidden feelings and professional boundaries. The courage it had taken for Winston to finally speak up, to risk their comfortable working relationship for the possibility of something more. The way they had built their love carefully and intentionally, making sure the foundation was solid before adding the weight of forever. "Do you ever regret the year we waited?" Harper asked quietly. Winston was silent for a moment, considering. "No, I think we needed that time. I needed to be sure I wasn't just infatuated or attracted to you. I needed to know this was real and lasting before I risked your career and our working relationship. And when I finally told you how I felt, I was absolutely certain. There was no doubt, no hesitation. That certainty made everything easier. I'm glad you waited until you were sure." "But I'm also glad I didn't wait any longer," Winston added. "A year was just right. Any longer and I might have lost my mind." Harper laughed softly, careful not to wake Rose. "It was perfect timing. Everything about us has been perfect timing." Life settled into a new rhythm: work and family, love and partnership. Harper continued her design career, eventually opening her own small studio that specialized in residential projects. Winston remained CEO of Drake Interiors, but with better work-life balance, making time for family dinners and weekend adventures. They traveled when they could, introducing Rose to art museums and beaches, and all the beauty the world had to offer. 2 years after Rose was born, they welcomed twin boys Henry and Harrison. The house they had bought in a quiet neighborhood was full of noise and laughter and chaos. Winston was an involved, loving father who was not afraid to get on the floor and play, to read bedtime stories in funny voices, to be silly and present. "You're really good at this," Harper said one evening, watching him build a blanket fort with all 3 kids. "I have a good partner," Winston replied, catching her eye and winking. "Makes all the difference." On their 5th wedding anniversary, Winston took Harper back to the art museum where they had their first date. He had arranged for them to have it to themselves again, and they walked through the galleries hand in hand, reminiscing about that magical night. "I was so nervous," Winston admitted. I had planned everything down to the last detail, but I was terrified you'd think it was too much or that I was trying too hard. It was perfect. It is perfect. Everything about us is perfect, even when it's messy and chaotic and exhausting. Especially then, Winston agreed. He stopped in front of the same abstract painting where he had kissed her 5 years earlier. Harper, these have been the best years of my life. Being your husband, building a family with you, watching you become an incredible mother, and continuing to grow in your career, it's been everything I dreamed and so much more. For me too. You gave me the courage to be myself, to pursue what I actually wanted instead of settling for what seemed practical. You see me, Winston. You've always seen me. I love what I see, he said softly, echoing words from years ago, and I always will. They kissed in front of that painting. 5 years of marriage and love and partnership between them. 3 beautiful children waiting at home with their grandmother, and an entire future still ahead. Harper thought about the girl she had been 3 years into her job as Winston's assistant, standing in his office and finally admitting to herself that she loved him. She had thought it was hopeless, impossible, a dream that could never come true. But Winston had been feeling the exact same way, building up his courage, making his plans, waiting for the right moment. And when he had finally made his move after a year of wanting, after 12 months of holding back, he had been right. The wait had been worth everything.